So, hello guys, and welcome back to our latest podcast. We're actually starting new podcasts this year. The last time we held podcasts was actually some couple of months last year, and we've not been having podcasts. So we're actually resuming the podcast this year since a lot of you have asked for this. And I have a guest with me in this podcast, and I will allow him to actually introduce himself. So you have the stage.
Yeah, you can just call me M for now, and yeah, hopefully we can touch more on the situation at the club.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a lot to be talked about in the club, and it seems the last 90 minutes actually summed up whatever happens in the club, both with regards to the hierarchy of the club, the civil war at the club, the recruitment at the club, the players at the club, and the manager. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think we should go one by one, right? I think we should start with the goalkeeping situation first of all,
Yeah,
because I don't know what's going on there. When we look at Robert Sanchez's stats, um, I've pulled up FBref.
yeah,
So his post shot expected goals minus goals allowed. Basically, this is like numbers that suggest better luck or an above average ability to stop shots, and how likely the goalkeeper is to save the shot. He's at 0.04, which is at 60th percentile for goalkeepers. And I'm just pulling this up to compare him to Petrovic.
yeah,
When we look at that, Petrovic is loading. But the thing about Sanchez is he has very good save percentage, strangely. He has 76.3% save percentage, which is like 91 percentile. So he's really high for that. He has good, stats for crosses stopped, defensive actions outside the penalty area, and average distance of defensive actions. So by the stats, Sanchez looks good. But I think the problem with statistics is they don't show you the full story. So, for example, when Sanchez has to make a save, most of the times he's putting himself in that trouble in the first place. He's coming out at the wrong times, he's making the wrong pass, and sometimes he makes those saves, and the statistics will show that, oh, he has good save percentage, or that he's saving shots that he shouldn't really be able to save. But when we actually look at it on the pitch, he's making those mistakes by himself. So I think the goalkeeper position is of massive trouble. Georgia Petrovic's PSG post-expected goal numbers are lower, but I think in that context, it does look like Petrovic doesn't make these mistakes. You get me?
yeah,
And
yeah.
when he has to face those shots, they come from poor defense. Because now, when you compare the defense of Strasbourg and the defense of Chelsea, and you see that the numbers are similar, you have to start wondering that maybe the quality of the keeper in the team that's worse is actually better. So I think for the goalkeeper situation, if we're not going to start Jorgensen, we should at least call Petrovic back because Jorgensen looks like he's nailed on to be the Conference League starter.
But I also have a question. The issue with with Jorgensen is that whenever I've seen him play, I've actually seen a good goalkeeper. I've not seen a goalkeeper who makes mistakes, especially with the ball at his feet. He's very composed. That's something that I noted, and also I cannot doubt his saving ability because I have seen Disasi actually put him in areas where it has actually made it quite difficult for him to actually save, and I've seen Petrovic pulling up some great saves in the cup games as well as in the FA Cup. So I think this is just a matter of a manager who's not really looking to actually give Jorgensen a chance in this team because if we are looking at how Chelsea want to play, uh, based on what Maresca did earlier on in the season by denying Petrovic a chance and constantly saying that Petrovic is not quite comfortable with the ball at his feet, something that I didn't see last season because whenever Petrovic had the ball, I didn't see him making any mistakes with it. But Jorgensen is good with the ball at his feet. So why do you think Jorgensen is not given the opportunity by the manager? As yet, we can see constant problems from Sanchez, despite the stats actually trying to be in his favor because he's actually putting himself in those positions to make those saves.
I think, yeah, that's a good point as well. Petrovic has been excellent. I think, in my opinion, from what I can tell, I think Maresca sees Sanchez as this really good goalkeeper who can play from out the back, which is not true. because in my opinion, when we've seen Jorgensen play and when we've seen Petrovic play, they don't really make a lot of mistakes. And if anything, they're probably better than Sanchez in distribution. Like there's nothing about Sanchez's distribution that makes you say that this is world class play from a goalkeeper. But I think Maresca sees it that way, and I think he feels the fans don't understand it. But at the same time, when we go look at things that these goalies do, like Petrovic and Jorgensen, they play it very simple. And I think that's what he doesn't want. You get me? But and Sanchez is willing to play risky. When he's playing risky, he's losing the ball more. But here's the thing, in my opinion, if you're a goalkeeper who's going to play risky, you should be good at that. Otherwise, you're putting the team in danger. And I don't think Maresca understands that he can train those keepers. Because if Petrovic and Jurgensen are making mistakes, they're young. Sanchez is 20, what, 27, 28. You'd rather have a youngster making those mistakes than an experienced player because you're actually helping the team grow. Sanchez, I feel like his time should be up. For the money he spent, it's not going to be the worst loss in the world, and his age doesn't reflect the profile he should be at. And if anything, it takes relief off the defenders because even the distribution now, it looks like the defenders are scared whenever he has the ball.
Okay, so when we look at it, when you look at the scenario of playing out from the back, you're not only seeing Sanchez making mistakes with the ball, we are seeing Sanchez make mistakes from actually from corners. We saw that in the game against Wolves. Instead of punching the ball away, he actually tries to catch the ball, misses the ball. We have seen Sanchez do the same thing in the game against Bournemouth. And we are seeing even Sanchez making errors sweeping because part of having a ball playing goalkeeper, part of having a goalkeeper who's actually good with the ball at his feet is a goalkeeper who's able to read situations, especially considering that we saw in the last game that Chelsea and Maresca is actually adopting this aggressive high line, and you need a goalkeeper who's fast enough and is able to read the game and know when to step out and actually clear the ball and when to actually retain his position in goal. But you've seen Sanchez making mistakes while sweeping. We saw it when we played Brentford. There's a time we played Brentford and he still made the same mistake. And there's some last season he also made similar mistakes, and Thiago Silva was actually lucky enough. We had Thiago Silva who could run towards the goal line and actually make clearances. So when you're looking at the mistakes Sanchez is making, he's not just making the mistakes when he has the ball at his feet. He's also making mistakes when he's actually claiming corners or looking to punch away corners or claiming crosses, and also when sweeping. So what would you actually say about that?
Yeah, I think that says a lot about his ability as a goalie. But the bad thing is, like, if we go look at Jorgensen, sorry, last time Petrovic did have lower PSG XA than Sanchez. But then again, same thing. Petrovic is playing a worse team. When you go look at Jorgensen, he has better, like, how do you explain? Yeah, post-shot expected goal numbers, and he has the same save percentage as Sanchez, but his crosses stopped aren't that high. Defensive actions outside penalty area are not that high. Again, this can be coming from playing the Conference League. So when we're talking about Sanchez's saving ability, I don't think it's actually that bad. I think it's his ability to claim crosses. So, for example, there are loads of games where we go and we're like, oh, Sanchez made that mistake, but he saves. If we're being honest, he does save. Like that game against Man City, you remember when Haaland beat Colwell and then he shot and then Sanchez saved that.
Yeah.
Even for the first goal, it was Sanchez's mistake, but he did save that other shot. So
But he put the team in that scenario in the first place.
that's the issue. I feel like Sanchez's ability in claiming crosses is bad, but I think in saving he's fine. But that's not the level we want to have at Chelsea, especially when you want to be a team that's playing out from the back and attacking in counters when you can.
And we also need to factor in that Sanchez has also conceded penalties. He actually conceded a penalty, I think it was against Bournemouth. Then he saved the same penalty that he conceded. Then he conceded a penalty against Manchester United. And he actually went ahead and he
Saved.
conceded through that penalty, and
Oh,
Chelsea
yeah,
dropped points. So we are seeing even a goalkeeper who's conceding penalties.
yeah, because I feel like his judgment to come rush out for the ball is also very questionable. When you go look at that Man City game, that is literally like it just supports my statement. He came out at such a horrible time. And I don't even know why Haaland wasn't even close to the goal. I think Chalobah did fine. He
Yeah,
pushed
yeah,
him well.
Chalaba. Yeah, I forced him wide. So if Sanchez would be back in goal, I saw actually three defenders were the ones who are making running back. So Chalobah would have contained Haaland. Haaland is not quite a good dribbler per se, but
Mhm.
you could see that Chelsea were actually bringing in numbers behind. So if Sanchez went back to goal, that situation doesn't happen. Manchester City don't score the second goal.
Yeah, and that prevents a loss for us. So I think at the end of the day, Sanchez has to go. And if the manager chooses to start him, we have to question the manager as well.
So actually, there's an interesting post that I actually saw on the internet. I came across it, and Maresca said, "We trust Robert Sanchez for sure," and he indicated like we have an entire week, and we'll see the reaction for the next game. And there's also a point whereby he indicated that probably he will try to assess whether he should play Robert Sanchez in the next game. Do you think it has reached a point where the manager is actually contemplating dropping him from the starting 11?
I think so, yeah, because at this point, right, all the mistakes Sanchez has made were mistakes in small games. So like everyone didn't see it. But now he made it against Man City, which is like Saturday's latest game everyone's watching. And everyone sees that Sanchez didn't make one but two mistakes leading to goal. And then the Chelsea fans come out with an outrage and they say, yeah, we've been seeing this over and over and over again. So I think it's not just the Chelsea fans now. It's like people neutrally who watch football are also questioning the manager. So I do think there is more pressure after that Man City game, and I wouldn't be that surprised if Sanchez doesn't start the next game, but I would also still be surprised because Maresca looks like he's very adamant on starting him.
I saw this journalist from ESPN called Jules Laron who talked about if Chelsea are really serious about doing anything or making any sort of progression, they should fix the Robert Sanchez problem. It's also something that Paul Mason actually talked about. So it's actually looking like this pressure is actually falling towards the manager because everybody is saying that this goalkeeper is not good enough, but you keep on playing him. So is it a point where everybody needs to focus on Enzo Maresca because he's picking the team, or this is beyond Enzo Maresca and the playing of Robert Sanchez constantly is more of a political question in the boardroom with the sporting directors? Do you think that is actually the scenario we are finding ourselves in?
I think that's a good question. The thing is, we can never know for sure, right? But from like a neutral perspective, it doesn't quite make sense why they would be so heavy on Sanchez because they've spent a lot on these other goalkeepers, and Sanchez was he didn't cost that much money, right? He's 30 million. You can expend him. You're not gonna lose that much money. So if it was someone like Enzo, if it was someone like Caicedo who cost them a lot of money, he was supposed to be the face of the team, I would understand that. But with Sanchez, I know I said yesterday, but I don't think it makes sense, especially considering how many keepers the board have bought. So unless they want to sell them on for profit, then maybe. But even then, it doesn't make sense to like want to start Sanchez specifically. In my opinion, I don't think so. I think this is a pure Maresca decision, and I think he's just stubborn on not moving him. What do you think?
I'm looking at it from a position where because he has been hell bent on trying to play Sanchez, and this is exposing two things about Enzo Maresca. One, it's either there is somebody powerful than him at the club that is actually sanctioning the playing of Robert Sanchez, or two, that we are actually getting to see the inexperienced side of Enzo Maresca because we're looking at a man who did not do quite well at Parma, and a person who struggled towards the latter games of the season at the championship against with Leicester. And we are seeing somebody who's problematic, who is reluctant to change, and somebody who's fixated towards playing a certain system of football and cannot actually look to adapt to try and get results for his team. He's stuck on this Pep Guardiola way, building from the back, even when you don't have a goalkeeper to do it. And when he looks at it, he thinks that because Sanchez sometimes attempts these long balls, that because we have seen Sanchez, like the goal that Palmer scored against Wolves, the
Yeah.
pass was from Sanchez. So when he looks at those risky passes from Sanchez, he gets impressed. Probably the other goalkeepers don't give him that. But with Jorgensen, he might not get that risky ball over the top, but he will get at least a neat passer and probably an incredible sweeper of the ball. So do you think that he's actually valuing that aspect of Sanchez's game over the mistakes that Sanchez is making? And
I
can we actually afford to have a goalkeeper making those mistakes?
To be honest, I think he is, but that's where the delusion comes, right? Because if you go look at Sanchez's ball playing ability, like I said, it's not good. The fact that you have to go all the way back to the second game of the season to remember the last time when he produced a pass that good just goes to prove the point that Sanchez is actually not that good. You'd rather have a competent keeper in goal. And I do think Maresca still is stubborn in believing that Sanchez is that keeper. I think he sees him as an Allison or Edison potentially, and he's not, because the last time he made that pass was really long ago. And I don't think we can afford that because, yes, you want to play a certain style. That's okay. It takes time. The players are young. When it's a young players making the mistakes, you can understand. Not when it's your experienced goalkeeper, not when it's someone everyone else should be relying on. And the thing is, you still have expectations, right? Like you're expected to finish in the top four. Financially, is very important for Chelsea. And yes, the system is also great. It's been working. But if it comes to the cost of the top four, as a manager, you have to learn to balance things. And yeah, even last year when we said he failed at Parma, Leicester fans were also complaining at a certain point that Maresca was hesitant to change the system because they went from scoring a lot of goals to scoring one goal a game, having ties because they got figured out. And this year, we're seeing now a problem with stubbornness once again with Sanchez. So I do think Maresca sees him like that, even though he's not, which I don't understand why. I think it's better we play Jorgensen, who is better at keeping the ball. And it makes more sense because when you want to play out from the back, you'd rather have a keeper who's steady with his feet, not someone who's so risky that you concede goals every 1 or 2 games. That's how you lose your job as a manager. And yeah, I just feel like it's best to blame the manager at certain points because he looks stubborn, and we can't afford a keeper like that because if we keep doing that, we are going to slip out of the top four, and Maresca could potentially get fired because it's been like very important financially for us to get Champions League football. So yeah,
Yeah, just before we get to the Champions League football talk, there is something that Sir Alex Ferguson said, and he said a good goalkeeper can actually make a 15 points or 10 points difference for you actually winning the league, meaning that a goalkeeper can actually win you 15 points in a season. But here we are with a goalkeeper who has made Chelsea concede 5 goals. So far, Chelsea have conceded 30 goals this season. So, do you think the 5 goals that Sanchez has made Chelsea concede, do you think those 5 goals have actually altered the results for Chelsea? Have they actually taken points for Chelsea? And if Sanchez makes no mistake and actually does not concede those 5 goals, do you think Chelsea would be in a better position higher up the table?
5 goals. Okay, I think it's more than 5 goals to be honest, because the stats will show errors leading to goals. Those only show where Sanchez passes the ball and he loses it to the opposition. They don't take into account when Sanchez isn't saving shots that he should be saving. For example, against Bournemouth, he got beaten at his near post. That's a shot he
Yeah,
should be saving. You get me?
yeah.
Against Kovacic on the opening day, a shot he should be saving. So
Even
in
the
my
Martinelli goal against Arsenal, he should also be saving that.
Yeah. And you see, it's stuff like that. When we just remember those three instances, that takes it from 5 to 8 goals. In my opinion, it's almost 10 or 15 goals. So when
Because they
Ferguson said a keeper can save you 15 points by saving goals, this keeper is costing us those points. And even if like we take away those 5 goals, right, leading to errors, they were all in games that were winnable when you think about it. Wolves, we got lucky. I think he made a mistake against Ipswich as well, if I'm not mistaken. No, that was
Yeah,
Jurgens playing that game, but he's made mistakes in those games where we could have easily picked up 3 points. So 5 goals alone would have taken us higher on the table. Combine that with shots we should be saving. it can be argued we could be in the title race, honestly.
There's also one thing that I noticed in the Bournemouth game. I don't know if it's the Bournemouth game or it's the Palace game. In the Palace game, there's a player who was marking Palmer, and Sanchez was under pressure. Instead of going long, he played the ball to Palmer, and Palmer lost the ball, and Crystal Palace actually countered, and Mateta scored, and Chelsea were 1-0 up. So I don't think that is factored in as an error from Sanchez, but rather it is factored in because Palmer received the ball, but the ball was taken away from Palmer. So that is counted as a complete pass. So the error is actually put on Cole Palmer, but who put Palmer in that situation? It was Sanchez. He played the ball to Palmer. Somebody was marking Palmer instead of just going long because we considered that goal in the 82nd minute. Why did he do it? I think those are 2 points that we lost in that game. And it started from the goalkeeper. I think there's also another game he played the ball to Lavia. It was a recent game, and then Lavia lost the ball, and the
I think
opponents.
it's Bournemouth.
It was Bournemouth. I think the penalty that Caicedo gave.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He's the one who played the ball to Lavia. Lavia lost the ball. The ball was played down to the winger, and then Caicedo had to make a tackle, and we conceded a goal after going 1-0 up. So we are looking at 2 games, and those are actually 4 points dropped.
And that's just 2 games. It's a lot more than that. So this guy, one player, is constantly dragging the team down. You remember when you used to have Courtois? It was the difference between winning a title because there are sometimes where Courtois would save a lot of shots. And if we ever want to get to that level, Sanchez is definitely not the keeper we should be having between the posts.
So is the club doing anything to rectify this situation in the transfer window?
To be honest, when we look at the club, it's like we said yesterday. I don't think they really care about the success on the pitch. I think they look at us like a Dortmund or a Tottenham, like we said. Like as long as we keep getting Champions League football, we finish third, we get far enough to a point where they can get their money back and invest so they can get the profit. That's all that matters to them. We can literally see with how they're spending, buying young players, wanting to sell them for higher. And when they try to sign big players, it's either hit or miss. Like I don't know about Garnacho, but they had good scouting with Thuram. But to be honest, I don't think they're going to do anything about the goalkeeper situation because, at least not now, because there's already so many goalkeepers they signed. We have signed so many. I don't know. Like I think we have 6 or 7, right? If I'm not mistaken, or more that are out on loan. And then we have Jorgensen on the bench. We also have Kepa, when we forget about that. Petrovic is out on loan. And they signed some younger ones in the summer. So I really don't think the board is going to do anything because it's all on Maresca at this point. He has all the tools he needs.
So this is actually leaving us with a big problem when you're looking at the goalkeeping situation because Enzo Maresca came out recently and talked about the club's ambitions for this season. And he talked about that the top 4 is not a priority this season. But when we look at it, the top 4 is there for the taking. In fact, not even the top 4, the top 3. Some might even argue that the top 2, because Arsenal are also not looking the Arsenal that we saw in the last 2 seasons. Arsenal are quite shaky. But let's not talk about Arsenal. We're looking at 3rd place, which is up for grabs. This Chelsea team is better than Nottingham Forest's team. This Chelsea team is better than Newcastle's team. So we have one of the best players in England, Cole Palmer. We have one of the best defensive midfielders in the league, Moises Caicedo. And we also have very talented wingers like Jadon Sancho, even João Felix. These are players which other big clubs would really want, even Kunku. Though Kunku's body language, when you look at it, is not quite the best. But you can clearly see that Chelsea have a very good squad, a squad that can actually compete for 3rd. And looking at the woes that Manchester City are facing, because I also expect Manchester City to drop a lot of points in this run that they are about to play. Do you think that Maresca coming out and saying that thing is a way of trying to create an excuse for himself if he fails to do it? Or do you think it's because this is actually going to allow these players to relax and these players are now going to start accepting defeats and draws, and that's how we're going to drop points? What do you think about that?
I think he is making an excuse, in my opinion, because top 4 was a priority coming into this season, not just to like expectations from the fans, but also from the club. From what I remember, financially, we really needed that revenue from going to the Champions League. So I don't know if he's had a conversation with the board about them or told them to lower their expectations. I think he's making an excuse, and top four is definitely up there for grabs. And it's weird because when we were in a title race, he said we're not in a title race, which I agreed. I didn't want to like over expect stuff. I don't know if that was the right thing to say, but top four I think is unacceptable. We have certain expectations at this place as a club. We are expected to be in the Champions League every year. We understand that it takes time to build a system, but you have an opportunity right now, and you're 4 points behind second, I believe, or behind third. It's not that far. So to say that we can't get top four is not just ridiculous with the squad we have, and also for our financial situation, we really need it. So I don't know if the board like actually approved them saying that, because I think they would be really annoyed because they understand the significance of getting Champions League football. I think Maresca is a bit, from saying stuff like that, sometimes I feel like he's a bit stubborn and arrogant once again, that I need time to implement my system, my players, this is this. We get that, but you have to also balance where the club needs to be financially. You also have to balance the expectations. That's why the Chelsea job is so hard. You can't just come in and do what you want. If we end up seventh for all we've spent, it's going to look horrible. It's going to look almost shameful in a way, because the investment hasn't returned on where we expect to be. So in my opinion, yes, I think Maresca is making excuses, and he should be doing better by just dropping Sanchez mainly. That's the main error cause of where we are.
Do you think by dropping Robert Sanchez, because if we get into PSR, it will be another, and that's another topic of discussion, just a podcast by itself, because probably next season we are looking at points deduction. So that's something that we can talk about in another podcast. But do you think dropping Robert Sanchez sorts Chelsea's defensive issues?
In my opinion, I think it solves about 60 to 70%, right? Because the players, once again, they're still young. They're going to be making those mistakes. So we can't sit here and say like, oh, the defense will be fully fixed. But if your defense is going to be 60 to 70% better, why not? Because like we said, Sanchez alone as a goalkeeper has costed us, let's estimate, like without the errors with errors leading to goal and shots he should be saving, around 10 or 15 goals, right? Let's say that those are double-digit goals. Jackson hasn't scored that much. So if you take out a goalie and put one that's competent, that like concedes, let's say 5, you arguably gain, let's say, I don't know, I think you can gain like 15 more points arguably, or 12 or 9. And even 6 puts us in a much better position for top 4. So I do think taking Sanchez out solves the majority of the issues, but we have to expect errors, because sometimes those happen from players, and especially younger ones, and the system we're playing. But it won't be as bad. It's going to be 60% better. So I do think it solves the majority of the problem. So we should definitely get him out of the goal.
But we also have defenders like Levi Colwill, who Enzo Maresca trusts a lot. A defender who Thiago Silva was holding up last season. But we're finding ourselves in scenarios where Levi Colwill is actually playing other players on side, and he's getting out-muscled. We are seeing even Mateta winning duels over him, Chris Wood winning duels over him, Haaland winning duels over him. And we even had to go and get back another centre-back who was actually put out of the team, Trevor Chalobah, and bring him back. And he's looking a better centre-back than those who we have. So does it mean that it's the manager, it's a tactical problem from the manager? Because Maresca said one thing interestingly after we played Real Madrid in pre-season, that the Real Madrid manager, Carlo Ancelotti, told him that the line was too high. There's something, he said it, that Carlo Ancelotti told him that line was too high. And Maresca actually told Ancelotti that he didn't intend to play with that line in the league. But here we are finding him playing with that aggressive line in the league. And you can clearly see that the front players, we don't have McGew up front who's going to apply pressure constantly. Because if you're choosing to play with an aggressive mid-block, because our mid-block was not aggressive, because I could clearly see Kovacic and Gundogan receiving the ball, zero pressure, and they could just look up and play balls over the top. So why insist on playing with a high line? Why insist on trying to use the offside trap when you know very well that your defenders are not well experienced, like players such as Virgil van Dijk and Konate, who can do that, and you're entrusting them with the ability to check their lines, and this is actually putting problems to the team.
Uh, I mean, yeah, that's true as well. But I think that also comes down to the inexperience of the players, which is where you need experience mixed with these young players. For example, when we look at the Man City game, right, where Cole stepped too close to Haaland, and Haaland is really strong. Cole is even shorter than Haaland. So it was easy for him to just lay it off. That's on Cole. But an experienced defender there doesn't get so tight to him. He gets just tight enough but stays behind and keeps at least a yard of space. So in case Haaland turns, he can just tackle, which I think now this is going to be part of the problems we'll see just naturally as adapting to the system, the high line, the high pressure. Things like this are expected to happen. The goalkeeper, like I said, is the main problem because it's like fire, in your building that you have to take out. These little things, they're like moles that will slowly go away with time, if that makes sense. You get me? Because the house is still adapting, it's still adjusting, and these players are young. I don't think this is on Maresca. I get the argument that, oh, you're stubborn to play like different systems. I would agree if the system wasn't working. Sometimes yes, you have to change it. Sometimes yes, but the system is working. The stats are good. We're a top four team. The only problem is like some of these players are young. The main problem is the goalie. So here I don't blame him. I think we just, if anything, if there's someone to blame for this, you can say it's the board. Because why is there no experience? Why, if we were going to, okay, Thiago Silva wanted to be let go on. I think they thought if they brought Tosin back, he would be more experienced. Tosin is old, but he's never played at a really high level. He's played at Fulham, right? So he might not be the right leader. That's nothing to say against Tosin. I think he's been decent this season, but that's all. He's been decent, which is why I think we had to bring Chalobah back because we needed some of the experience. And the backline has looked a lot better. And with the midfield, right? For example, when you said Man City looked like they were running all over us, that game I feel like Maresca just got tactically outmatched by Pep because there were moments where it was clearly a tactical issue. For example, the first goal we conceded when Guardiola was so wide, Marmoush was really narrow, so Reece James had to follow him. So Guardiola got that space, and there was space on the wing. Nothing you can do about that. Man City, I feel like Caicedo and Enzo, they can't press because now Bernardo Silva was dropping in midfield. So it was
But
Kovacic
I
holding
think
that. Yeah.
I beg to disagree. I think there's something that could have been done with Josko Vardiol, because he made that run twice. He made that run the first time, he missed. He made that run the second time, he missed. And we constantly saw the threat because Guardiola actually changed his system and used his fullbacks to actually make those runs in behind. And why were they making those runs in behind? It's because we played with a high line. And when you look at even the distance between our goalkeeper and that line, it was so huge that it can actually create problems for the goalkeeper, whether he should step out, whether he should stay back in his line. And the two instances, Sanchez remained in his line, and Vardiol was unable to score. In fact, there's a time he actually switched it to his right foot, and he actually didn't attempt even a
Yeah.
shot on target. But the high line, I can talk about the high line because that is something that is in Maresca's control, and the warning signs were there. And again, why would you go to Manchester City and then we are finding Palmer and Jackson not applying pressure on players like Gundogan and Kovacic? And why are we not even pushing an extra midfielder like Fernandes to try and help in applying that pressure? Because if you deny the likes of Akanji, the likes of Gundogan, the likes of Kovacic that space, that ball doesn't get played there, but we allowed that ball to be played there. So I believe that's a tactical problem from Maresca, because we can't go man to man in that kind of scenario. Because I believe we can actually look to try and win our duels.
No, I agree. In that game, yes, that game I feel like it is on Maresca because, like I said, he got fully outclassed by Pep, like on every front and move. Why Palmer and Jackson weren't? I think that's because Pep really outsmarted him because Bernardo Silva was moving all over the place. So when he's dropping, he's constantly creating a numerical superiority. So now you have the center backs and Bernardo Silva. When it's going to midfield, you have the midfielders and Silva. So it's a 3v2 all the time. So yeah, that game is on him. But sometimes I also feel like the players are tired. Enzo and Caicedo are playing every game. Palmer and Jackson are playing every game. And the lack of personnel sometimes always hits us hard. I do think Maresca is definitely accountable for some of his decisions, but yeah, I don't think it's a system issue. You could the highline, I get it. Maybe it can be slightly brought back, but the players are young, and if you want to press Man City, it made sense because Man City have an aging midfield. You get me? So we should have done that, but it looks like they found a solution to beat our press, which is why in the first 20 minutes it worked. Then it just changed. It's just how it is sometimes.
In my opinion, I think our press, our aggression in the press dropped, and I've seen a statistics that since post Christmas, our pressing has dropped with close to 25%. We are allowing the opponent a lot of passes per defensive action, and this signifies one thing, that the team is fatigued. But again, I have a question. We have teams like Arsenal, we have teams like Manchester City, we have teams like Liverpool, which are playing even in the Champions League, where they're actually fielding the same 11 that they are going to field in the Premier League. Why is our team tired? I thought that this fatigue problem would be solved by when Pochettino leaves, because Pochettino had emphasized
Yeah.
on the dark on press and the constant running in training. And also, I thought that having a squad depth, because we were able to play a different team in the Conference League, we need to have these players fresh. So, is Maresca actually not putting in some discipline when it comes to these players actually playing, or has the training level also gone down? Because it also looks like to try and mitigate the injuries, there's less training on, there's less physical training in terms of running, in terms of doing high intense drills. And is this actually killing off players? Are they now losing their intensity in a stronger league?
This, I think, is where I blame Maresca. I don't think Maresca's system is bad. I think his man management is horrible. Yes, we have squad depth. We also have Conference League, but and we've been somehow hammered by injuries. But Maresca's stubbornness to not use other players really annoys me because we had Ashimpong, which Chelsea fans were screaming to start for so long. But remember, James was injured, so who was starting a lot of the time at right back? Gusto. That's not even his preferred position, the inverted fullback. There are times where we had to play Disasti at right back. So the players are tired from playing too many games. Even though we have squad depth, our squad depth is Lavia. Lavia is always injured. Chukwemeka can cover, but we don't want to use him. Santos and Uguchukwu are out on loan. Why we don't call them back, I don't know. So Enzo and Caicedo are playing every single minute of every single game. This another point that I will blame on Maresca is the substitutions are way too late. You might as well just not make them. Like clubs like Liverpool, Man City, they make the substitutions. De Bruyne didn't even start against us, you know. Marmoush just came on. He started. Kusanov didn't play well. He came off for Stones. So that's another thing on Maresca. Your players are going to get tired if you play them the majority of the minutes every game, especially your key players. And if your key players are midfielders like Caicedo and Enzo, or a really high pressing striker like Jackson, they're going to get fatigued. They're going to drop off. So I think that's the reason we look so tired. The same players playing all the time, and the manager's stubbornness to rotate them. I think that's the main thing.
Okay, that is, I think that is quite intensive. So, as we are actually looking to conclude this podcast, do you think that now the decision is going to be made about Robert Sanchez? And is he going to be taken out of the team? And who is more likely to be his replacement? Are we going to see Petrovic getting recalled? Are we going to see Jorgensen actually being given a start and actually being given the faith by the manager? Because here we have a goalkeeper who we signed from La Liga. And La Liga, every team likes playing from the back, so it's natural for them. Is this a player who you expect can come in and actually help Chelsea when it comes to that kind of situation? And what is the future for Robert Sanchez at the club? Is he looking to be sold in the summer, or what do you think?
I I don't think Sanchez is gonna be like replaced. To be honest, I think he's gonna. I won't be surprised if he still started next game. unless if he does not start next game, I think Jurgensen will be between the sticks. And if Jurgensen plays well, he'll get another game, another game. Sanchez will probably be brought back again because he's the main man from Maresca. I think in the summer Sanchez will be gone too, and I think we might buy a goalkeeper unless Jurgensen gets minutes from this game all the way to the end of the season. We might buy a new goalie. To be honest, I'm very 50-50, but if I had to make a bet, I still think Sanchez will start next game, but he will be sold in the summer.
So will Maresca actually allow him to cost him the top four? Because Pochettino also used to say that the top four was not his priority. He even said it towards the latter stages of the season. Todd Bowley had backed him, but when the final season reports came out, they said that they sacked Pochettino because Pochettino did not meet the targets that were set for him last season. And one of those targets was probably the Europa League and the top four. They said it's the top four and the cup. So giving Maresca that 5-year contract, a team that finished sixth last season and unfortunately played in the Conference League because Manchester United won the FA Cup. Because if Man City wins that FA Cup, Chelsea will be in the Europa League.
Yeah, I.
So,
Uh-huh.
so do you think Maresca will have an excuse to defend himself? Because even looking at the PSR issues and the amount of money that Chelsea have spent, I don't think Chelsea are also in a position to splash a lot of money on players.
To be honest, I hope we don't sack Maresca. He's stubborn, but his system is brilliant and it's working perfectly. But I do think the board will do anything as long as they can put the blame on someone else. For example, last year, Poch came out publicly and said we can't get top four. And I don't think the reason the board sacked him was because he failed to get that. It was because he wanted to have a say in transfers and they didn't let him. For example, he wanted to keep Gallagher, but we sold Gallagher. So I really hope we get top four. If we don't, I can see Maresca being gone, to be honest, because this board look very trigger happy and they're willing to let anyone take the blame if it makes them look good.
At the end of the day, the fans are actually going to go back and try to get at the board. So, thank you very much for joining us for this podcast today. And hopefully, we can do another podcast soon.
For sure. It's nice having being here as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, you're welcome. So, I will probably end this.
Take care.
Okay, take care.